Hello, my name is John Liddy. I am the Director of Applied Technology at High Reliable Power Systems, or High Rely as it's otherwise known. Today I'm going to show you how to use the GE-850R as a midpoint recloser in a loop scheme. And in the loop scheme it will be set for normal overcurrent under normal conditions, and then when the loop scheme action takes place it will switch to a counting recloser. So it will actually count how many overcurrents followed by a loss of power. So once it reaches its count, which is set for 2, it will sectionalize the section. So pretty neat. The GE-850R can be set to be a tie point in a loop scheme. Midpoint, as I just talked about, which you'll see now, and you'll see later on other videos I'll show how it can be used as a counting recloser, counting sectionalizing recloser, a sectionalizing recloser. So it's a pretty neat product. All this was done with one settings group, and plenty of room for more programming or control in a loop scheme. However, this is I would say 90% of what you would need today in a loop scheme. So let's get started. I'm going to connect to the GE-850R, which I have in the other room. I'm just connected through the doghouse port in the front of the relay, and I'm just going to monitor the front HMI. Once you get quick connected, you'll be able to access all the settings that are in the relay. I'm going to access through an administrator password, which is just set to 0 for simplicity. However, the GE-850R does have built-in security. And I'm just going to go get the status and the HMI display. Now this basically tells you right on the front of the relay what's active. Right now it's looking at source 1 and source 2 are selected to be active and monitored as part of the protection and loop scheme. Right now it's set for tie reclosing. The recloser is turned off, the loop scheme is turned off, and the counting mode and alternate settings are turned off. We're going to go turn those on right now. So, and we're going to switch the scheme to be a midpoint and a counting recloser under the loop scheme action. Alright, so here we are with the GE-850R in its cabinet with the push buttons, with the open and close push buttons, the open and close LEDs which follow the status of the interrupter, and the hotline tag for hotline tag action. So if you wanted to turn a hotline tag on, you could turn it on right on the front of the panel. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can see what's going on. You'll see what I'm doing on the front of the screen. So I'm going to go, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chain tie to a midpoint. So I hit the home button, status, summary, tab push buttons, and in the tab push buttons is where you'll select what type of application you have. And in this case, tab push button 5 is the tie. We have to turn that off first, and then we'll go back to tab push button 1, which is the midpoint. You can't be in any other application. You're either in a midpoint or a sectionalizer, a counting sectionalizer, a counting recloser, or a tie. You can't be in any other one at the same time. At this point we're going to enable reclosing. We're going to enable the loop scheme. And now counting mode is on already. But in order, if you wanted to have an alternate overcurrent setting, you could change it to alternate overcurrent setting, turning off the counter and turning on the alternate overcurrents. But we're going to be in counting sectionalizer, so it's going to be a normal overcurrent under normal conditions, and if the loop scheme action takes place, it'll be a counting sectionalizer. So let's go and run a test. All right, you can see on the front of the relay of the display here that the GE-850R now is loop scheme is active, and it's midpoint selected, and reclose is enabled. So we'll have 3 shots to lock out, 2 on the fast curve, 1 on the slow curve, and then we're going to have a loop scheme action will take place once you have a loss of power for, in this case, 20 seconds. The timer can be set for otherwise. However, in this case, just for test purposes, we set it to 20 seconds. And it's in a counting mode when the loop scheme action takes place. So let's go ahead and test this. It has 18 states, and once it runs through, you'll get all these green statuses indicating that you trip and close. You can see that this has completed its test, and we can export our event into ComTrade so we can analyze it. And then we can also go into the GE-850R and go into the records and get these events out. So this is a sequence of events. It basically shows exactly what happened internally to make sure that the logic works correctly. So you can export this and save this into a file. We can include the data and you can give it a name. So I have it saved in test 12, which is what this is right now. Test 12, there are some 75 different tests and iterations to this recloser, all with one settings group. It is pretty neat, just saying. So let's go take a look at and see what happened, and let's go into the event records and okay. So what we see here is along the top trace is normal conditions, normal load current, followed by a fault condition. And we trip and reclose 3 times, and then we're going to see the sectionalizer. You have to blow this up to actually see what's actually happening. So let's expand this a little bit so you can actually see what's happening. So this is the reclose action. You see it trips, the breaker opens and then it closes, recloses. It trips and then it recloses again, and it trips and it recloses again. And then once it loses power, for 20 seconds, it becomes a sectionalizer on the loop scheme action, and it's set for two counts before it actually opens up the interrupter. So let's blow this up. So in this case, it's not going to trip when it sees an overcurrent, it's going to count. So in this case, it sees an overcurrent followed by a loss of power, it's a count of 1. It sees another overcurrent followed by a loss of power, it's a count of 2. Once it reaches count 2, it trips, and that's what you see down here. It actually calls for a trip command here, and the breaker actually opens, and then I manually close it as a part of the test. So that's this is the event as captured inside the Omicron, and then we also have the event as captured inside the 850R to analyze it and make sure that that worked correctly. So that's the GE-850R recloser control set up as a midpoint recloser with a counting recloser and loop scheme action. Pretty neat stuff.